Hi there. Welcome to Productivi-Tree. I'm Santi Tacoronte, and I'm here to help you succeed and be happier. In each episode, we'll explore new ways to work smarter, manage your time better, and grow as a person. We'll share fresh ideas, find ways to improve, and help you become your best self at work, in life. Join me as we learn and grow together on Productivi-Tree.
Is your lack of sleep sabotaging your productivity? In this episode, we dive deep with Riley Jarvis, founder of Peak Perform and the Sleep Consultant, to uncover how optimizing your sleep can supercharge your energy, focus, and success. From breaking down sleep myths to sharing actionable strategies, Riley brings his expertise in helping high achievers unlock their peak potential. Whether you're an entrepreneur burning the midnight oil or a busy professional seeking balance, this conversation is packed with science-backed tips to help you win the night and the day. Hello, Riley, and welcome to Productivi-Tree.
Thank you, Sand. Happy to be here today.
So you've been called a CEO whisperer for helping high performers sleep better. What is the most shocking transformation you've witnessed in your clients after you optimize their sleep?
Yeah, it's a really good question, and there's so many different case studies that come to mind. But you do see the same overlapping issues that a lot of CEOs have. And a lot of the time that is stress. And they like to keep their stress sort of under the radar. They don't want to show it, and they bottle it all up until it becomes too much. And then they just can't sleep anymore. And they go towards, sleeping pills or alcohol and different things like this that they only know that's available to them. But I had one individual in particular named Jordan. He's probably 49 years old, CEO, 3 kids, wife, a stay-at-home mom, and he was not able to sleep at all. And this guy was a hustler, very successful CEO. I think he had a couple businesses, and we were able to help him just sleep better, get his deep sleep and his REM sleep back on track, and get between an hour and a half or about 2 hours of deep sleep and REM sleep, which is really that sweet spot we need to really restore the mind and restore the body. And then as a result, he didn't need coffee the next day, didn't need sleeping pills to get to sleep. And you can do it naturally if you find the root cause of where is this coming from instead of just looking at symptoms.
This is incredible. So you're saying that someone goes from not sleeping at all to sleeping like a baby. How do you perform this magic?
Yeah, sleep is something that's universal across all types of industries, right? We all need it. Some people need a bit more, some people need a bit less. But really what it comes down to is it's case by case via everyone's biology. Some people need a bit more work. Some people not as much. Sometimes people have diagnosable sleep conditions, sleep apnea, restless leg syndrome, insomnia, but other people just need a little bit. So where I find the best way and approach to look at people is look at the root cause. And what we do is we send lab tests to their house, and they would take a urine, saliva, stool sample, send it to the lab, and we'll figure out what is their cortisol like? What is inflammation in their body like? Do they have leaky gut? Is there heavy metals, moles, toxins in their body? What is their brain neurotransmitters telling us? Do they have too much dopamine that's turning to adrenaline and that's keeping them sort of up at night? Maybe they don't have the GABA, which are the brakes on the brain to kind of chill out. Is it serotonin, which is the happiness neurotransmitter to really help them feel that sense of ease while they're falling asleep? There's these imbalances within our body. And if any one of those is out of balance, it's a bit like the game Jenga if you've ever played. You'll pull out one puzzle piece here, create stress on the other side. You'll pull out a piece here until the whole thing comes tumbling down. And so it's like our body's the same way. When each part becomes imbalanced over time, the full thing can come tumbling down. And that's where the communication between all the different parts of the body, they're just not as efficient as it should. So if you think of your body as like a machine, a system, it's much the same way. We want all the different parts of the brain to communicate with the gut, the hormones to communicate with the different organs. And it's like a beautiful orchestra in unison. But if one instrument's playing too fast, too slow, then the full song is off. And so that's a good analogy that I feel kind of encapsulates high-level view what I do with people.
Lots of people think of sleep as a routine. Night comes and then you go to sleep. But you have quite a scientific approach to it. What has been your most surprising discovery? You have analyzed the sleep of more than 2,000 people and gathered a lot of data and markers around it. What was your most surprising discovery?
Yeah, the biggest one for people that I see consistently, and this is hidden, I think it's going to be more well known as time goes on because it always takes a while for the mainstream to catch up when there's something cutting edge that's out. It can take 5 to 10 years sometimes. What I think that's going to be is parasites inside of the gut. And the reason why is parasites are something people can sure get at second, third world countries, but you can also get it from contaminated, like uncooked meats, fish, sushi. You're swimming your local lake, you might swallow some of the water. And if somebody has a resilient immune system, which most immune system is located in the gut, we'd be able to fight these things off. But for a lot of people, these parasites can stay there. Pathogens, H. pylori, there's a lot of different evil little critters in there. And they can stay in our gut for years at a time. And essentially what they do is they can steal the nutrients of the foods we're eating. So we might be eating a healthy diet. And, I'll talk with people and they're doing all the right things, all the healthy things, and they can't sleep and they don't know what's going on. And so we look at their gut, we run a test, and we can see they have gut parasites, and that's causing the parasites to steal the nutrients from the food. Now they don't have the building blocks that they need for their hormones, for their brain neurotransmitters, and all the different functions in their body. And so once we remove it, all of a sudden, the body is very self-correcting and self-healing when you give it the right inputs. And so once we remove those, usually over about 30 to 60 days, then we will see drastic improvements in how they sleep because now cortisol is not going to be as high anymore. Sometimes these things will come more awake or active at nighttime. And so that's one of the biggest ones that I would see. There's other things too, like heavy metal and molds, but that's like one of the biggest epiphanies that I've seen. And people think, well, what's a parasite in my gut related to my brain? And there's a lot related to your gut in your brain. And that's why they call your gut the second brain, because they have a two-way lateral connection to the vagus nerve.
Is it easy to get parasites in your gut, in your intestine, and continue having a normal life without noticing or not having clear symptoms?
Yeah, and that's another good question too, because everybody genetically and based on their environment has a different size stress bucket. And in our stress bucket, it's called our allostatic load. We can put in internal stressors and external stressors. External, we know those ones, stress with work, drama in a relationship. We can manage that through meditation or something. But the ones that are hidden are the internal ones. And one of those can include a parasite. Now, depending on how many stressors you put into somebody's bucket, depending on how big it is, some have a big stress bucket and a parasite might not even bother them at all. Other people are extremely sensitive to this. And so that's where there is no cookie cutter, one size fits all approach. It has to be individually tailored to the person.
Let's speak sleep hacks. The internet is full of sleep hacks. You open TikTok, Instagram, from breathing 10 times consecutive, very deeply, almost until you're out of breath. Does these things work?
It's a good question too. They all work, and there's different layers to this game. So you always want to do the basics and the fundamentals first. You can go advanced with all the advanced biohacks, but unless you get the foundations in place first, the advanced stuff is pretty useless. Starting with the basics, I'll give you probably, between 5 and 10. So number one is cool bedroom environment temperature. That's between about 16, 18 Celsius, 65, 67 Fahrenheit. And that's number one, because within a 24-hour period, our body's the coldest internally within about a couple hours after our sleep. So we want an external environment that's conducive to that. Number two is we want it to be pitch black. Now, ideally, we would want it to be so pitch black that we don't see our hand in front of us. It's a good measuring stick, and that's idealistic. But to be realistic, we just want it to be as dark as possible. So that means blackout curtains. Even in the morning when sun's coming through, we just want to make sure that like the curtain, the window, they're pinched as much as possible. You can wear an eye mask, but we still have these light receptors around our eyes that can detect light at a subtle level. And even electronics within our room, like heaters, fans, cable boxes, we want to turn those off or cover those with tape or whatever it is, because those can also impact our sleep as well. And it doesn't seem like it. It seems like it's so small and nuanced, but it does have an impact on our sleep. Speaking of light, the second thing is going to be blue light. So blue light can directly inhibit our melatonin, which is our master sleep hormone. And within, a 24-hour period, melatonin is highest right before we go to sleep, a couple hours into sleep, and lowest when we first wake up in the morning. And it has an inverse relationship with cortisol. So when we go to bed, we want cortisol to be lowest and we want melatonin to be highest. For a lot of people, they don't have melatonin as high as it should be because they're looking at blue light before they go to sleep. So maybe they're looking at their phone, they're watching TV before bed, and a couple things you can do is get blue light blocking glasses. Now, there's a lot on the market, but my favorite ones are called the True Dark Twilight classics, and they're going to make you look like Cyclops. They're red, but again, I mean, we're looking for results here. And it's great because it'll block sight from the periphery. And there's other forms of light besides blue light. There's green light, violet light that can be stimulatory, but blue is, on the top for suppressing that melatonin. And there's a lot of, you can just Google blue light, potential risk of disease, not sleeping well. I think we're going to see more about the science with that too. So that's that one. Now, another one that a lot of people don't realize is people think it's all about the evening routine, but it's also about the morning routine. So what that means is when we first wake up, we want to expose our eyes to sunlight within about an hour when we wake up. The reason why is because light goes into our eyes and it comes to something known as our SCN. It's sort of our internal master clock. That is going to send a signal to all of our organs, all of our hormones, that it's time to turn on, to hit that on switch. And that's when that timer begins where, 12, 16 hours later, our body knows when it's time to go to bed. And our bodies, our brains are really these outdated monkey machines. And, our technology has increased, but our bodies haven't changed too much since during the age of our ancestors when we were hunting, hunter-gatherer society. And so it's called the Savannah principle, where there is this mismatch. So what we have to do is when we first wake up, expose our eyes to the sun. On a sunny day, you want between about 10 and 15 minutes is enough. Don't look directly at the sun, but just try and get the light in the eyes. On a cloudy day, you want about 30 minutes. If you're in a part where I'm like Canada, where we don't get a lot of light at this time of the year in the morning, you can get something called a lux light. Usually you want to look between about 10 to 12,000, 50,000 lux. You just put it on the 45-degree angle in the morning when you're, first working or something, put it on for 30 minutes. And that's a great way until the sun goes up, and then you can go for a walk earlier that morning too. So those are a couple things that people can utilize. And there's more too, but let me know if you want to keep riffing here, but those are some helpful ones.
Let's switch to another important part of productivity. You work with people that is busy and successful. Productivity, it's addictive in a way, and success is also addictive. How do you convince people, clients that are super busy, that are successful, that are sleeping not so much because they have a lot to do? How do you tell them, hey, time out, leave a few things because you need to get your sleep?
Yeah, because what got them to the place they are is hustling, right? Burning the candle at both ends, sacrificing sleep. A lot of these guys see sleep as a liability and something that's kind of getting in their way. And if they had their way, they wouldn't sleep at all. Some of these guys are genetic. There's about 1% to 2% of the population that need less than about 4 or 5 hours of sleep. And if that's them, then great. But if you're sacrificing your sleep, you can develop health conditions down the road like Alzheimer's disease, with plaque building up in the brain. The list goes on. But functionally, what I have to show them is, yes, the less you sleep, of course, the more you can get done. But look how much that's impacting you during the day. When you could be focusing better, you could be in, deep flow states. You could have unlimited energy. You could have very good emotional intelligence, so you could be a better leader. And if, the game for them is all about efficiency. And so, yes, it might take more time to sleep, adding a couple hours, but the efficiency in your day of the hours spent in your waking hours, that is going to be significantly more across all KPIs throughout your business and your personal life. And then I also want to tell them too, sometimes you don't have to sleep 8 to 9 hours. We can increase the sleep quality of your deep sleep, of your REM sleep, and other markers too, your heart rate variability, resting heart rate, the list goes on. And from there, we're able to sometimes sleep less and actually feel better because we'll track their sleep with an Oura ring. I'll be able to look at their stats day and night, what it's showing me. And there's so much room for improvement that when we make those improvements, sometimes they can slice hours off their sleep and they just feel better too because their body is less inflamed. It's just more healthy. And then they just feel better too. So when I put it in that lens, then they start to see, and then they start to visually feel it. And then they never want to go back to what they were before because they just see how much better they feel.
Let's talk a little bit about bad sleep. I read this week or last week something like, no matter how bad you're feeling today, you're only one sleep away to be the best version of yourself. But let's say, for the sake of the example, that you had a bad night for whatever reason. You had dreams, nightmares. How can people recover and go back to being a normal being after a bad sleep?
Yeah, that's a good question too. One of the things that you can do is you can try a nap in the afternoon, but you don't want to have a nap after 3 p.m. And you want to make your nap about 26 minutes exactly, because if you start going over the 30-minute mark, you can start going to deeper phases of sleep and you're going to wake up ending up feeling groggy. But if you didn't get a good sleep, having a nap, between 11, maybe 2 p.m., that's a great way to do a recharge. Some countries do that and, the employers show great results. Like they have sleeping pods in different working organizations. I think the last one I saw was in Japan. It's becoming more popular in different parts of the world. So that's one thing that you can do. Of course, you can drink coffee and you can do these short-term things, but think of it like a bank account. If you're taking withdrawals out of your bank account by having caffeine, that is going to put you in a deficit. We want to be in a surplus all day. And so you first have to go to the baseline of, if you were so much in a surplus, like if your bank account was, let's say, plus 1,000, maybe you didn't have a good sleep. Now you're down to, let's say, 700, but you're still in a surplus. So you're still feeling fine and sleep's not going to impact you as much. It's just that people are always hovering around maybe just plus 100 surplus. So when they get a bad sleep, now they're in a minus 1,000 deficit and they feel horrible. And so now they go to coffee, they go to alcohol, they go to sleeping pills just to try and feel better. So the first thing is make your body so resilient that even a bad sleep won't interrupt you too much. But of course, we all have busy schedules. So you can try coffee, you can try slight melatonin, but the best thing is to sometimes take the hit for that day and then plan on just going to bed at the same time and getting a good sleep that night. Because the moment that you try mixing around the schedules, sleeping for 3 hours, having too much coffee that day, what you're going to find is going to impact the next couple of days afterwards. The net result of that is sometimes a worse impact. But besides that, you can do a cold shower, you can do an Epsom salt bath, you can do like minor exercise to get your heart rate going. You can expose your eyes to the sun. But some days, if we have those, when those days do happen, we just have to take it a little bit more easy. And that's where awareness comes in of like, we have all these tools available to us, but what one do we take out at the right time based on how we feel?
Riley, I'm a data geek. It's my profession and I love it. Let's speak a little bit tech. Smart devices such as the rings, Oura rings, Fitbits, smartwatches that measures your sleep. Number one, are they reliable?
They're probably about 30% off for the most part. So I don't like to see them individual days. Like I wouldn't take that data too seriously, but I do like to see the trends. And so if we can get 14 days, 30 days, I probably want at least 30 days of data to get a good baseline for somebody. But if I can see like 3 months of data, 6 months of data, and we can correlate that to how they're subjectively feeling, then they can rate themselves. We still see the data on that. And we do different, we'll change the diet. How do their biometrics respond to that? If they're exercising, how do their biometrics respond to that? So we can tinker with that by changing one variable at a time. But the best sleep device in the market today, it's an expensive one. It's called the 8 Sleep. And that's a pad that goes over your bed that dynamically adjusts the temperature. You can think of like your mattress pad while you sleep. And that is so good for your sleep. And it's probably the most accurate for tracking your sleep. Number 2 is probably going to be the Oura Ring. Now, the version 4 just came out, so that is probably the best on the market today. The one below that, it might be Whoop Band, it could be the Apple Watch. All the other ones sort of tie together. But, technology has reached a point where they are all pretty good for the most part if we're tracking the trends. But the 8 Sleep and the Oura Ring are still on top.
Have you heard about the technology applied to clothing, to apparel, to sleeping? Have you heard about brands like Daxmayan that keep your body cool and the temperature at the same level while you sleep? What do you think about those?
Yeah, I think they're great. There's a lot of technology coming out right now, whether it's clothing or electronic gadgets. I'm a big fan of those things, and I'm trying these different things. I mean, I'm a bit of a guinea pig myself. Everything from like biohacker type clients to, EMFs. So they'll paint their walls with a special paint that's black. So, the frequency won't come in, or EMF blocking clothes. Similar to what you're saying, I think it all is valid. Is it that one thing? No. But does it add it might be 5% to their solution. And then it's a combination of everything combined that you really get the most amount of results.
Let's talk, you've mentioned it a few times. Let's talk about the most consumed drug in the world, caffeine. Does it make people more productive? And what are you trading off when you are exchanging caffeine for a peak of, let's say, energy against your sleep?
Yeah, so caffeine, and again, everybody's different. So some people genetically are a fast metabolizer of coffee. And we all know those people who can go for a cup of coffee in the evening and they feel fine and they can sleep okay. That's one group of people. The other group of people is they're slow metabolizers of coffee. They can even have one cup of coffee at 10 a.m. and still feel wired at 11 p.m. So they have to be careful. Most people in the middle, what I suggest is if you're going to bed at about 10 p.m., your last cup should probably be at about 10:30 to 11 a.m. just to be safe. They do say, wait 7-8 hours, but I've just seen a half-life a lot more than that of coffee that it can last for people. Now, what coffee is doing for you is, and again, everybody responds differently, but you are increasing cortisol and you're increasing adrenaline. Now, there are studies that show the benefits of coffee. Its antioxidant property and everything else. And there's pros and cons to everything. You just have to weigh what is best for you and what are you looking for. But what we see is when we run a hormonal test, it's usually a urine-based test where we can see somebody's cortisol throughout the day. And when we first wake up, within 90 minutes, our cortisol is at its highest. Throughout the day, our cortisol goes down to its lowest throughout the day before we go to sleep. And when somebody has coffee, and especially their adrenal glands, which secrete cortisol, what we can see is that can be very detrimental for somebody who is in a state of adrenal fatigue or adrenal dysfunction. And so if their cortisol just baseline without coffee is too high, they're running on a dirty source of energy and it's very short lasting. And so the coffee is going to add to that, where it's going to spike up and it's going to come down like a roller coaster. And what you're doing when that happens is you're now tapping into the backup generators and the backup resources of the body when it shouldn't be there. You should be able to go, for example, like +1, -1, just maintain that same level of consistency throughout the day. But now let's say you have coffee and it's spiked your cortisol up to +10. Well, that's going to come crashing down again. And there's a couple things you can do with coffee, like having it with fat, MCT oil, things like that to make it more of a slow release. But for the most part, if somebody feels like they're burnt out and they're in stage 2, 3, 4 adrenal fatigue, you need to probably go off it for a period of about 30 to 60 days. And it's tough. I mean, don't get me wrong. You can get headaches, you can get withdrawal symptoms. Coffee smells great in the morning. It's a great ritual to have. But if you can get over that initial hump, you'll see how much better you feel. And it's like putting training wheels on a bike. You got to put the training wheels on the bike, learn how to ride the bike, give your system a break so it can build itself up again. And then once it feels healed and ready, you can take the training wheels off, go into maintenance mode, and then just have it whenever you feel like it. But depending on how you feel, like a lot of these CEOs are so burnt out and they relied on coffee their entire lives to get to where they are, but their body just biologically can't support that because sometimes their adrenals just don't have the cortisol to output anymore. And as a result, we got to give their body a break.
If you would need to change just one habit tonight about the hundreds of thousands of people that are going to listen to this podcast, one thing, what would it be?
If they were to change one thing, I would say the earlier you can go to bed, and it's very cliche, but it's very true. The earlier you can go to bed and the more that you can have a 1-hour ritual prior to sleep to make it like a sacred ritual before sleep and see it as an investment. Like sleep is an investment that is going to pay you dividends the next day, and keeping your bank account in this big surplus so that it's only going to pay you back and you're going to be able to achieve what you want to. Just perceive less effort, easy, in a way that's fun. We all are better people when, we're our best selves when we sleep better. And I think Matthew Walker said a quote, you know a lot more about somebody, not asking how's it going, but ask how do they sleep? You'll learn a lot more.
How do you reconcile this with social life? See, I'm an early sleeper and I'm totally with you. But it costs me sometimes tough conversations with people when I tell them that if I want to have an amazing day tomorrow, I might go to sleep at 9 p.m. And a common answer is like, you're wasting your life. How can you sacrifice so much of your, particularly people that is busy or people that works the whole day? It's a bit of a struggle to say that you finish, or you're off work and dinner and whatever at 7:30, and you have literally 1 hour or 1 hour and a half or 2 of me time before going to bed.
Yeah, so we all need a social life, right? We all need to, we can't be too strict every single day. And for the most part, like what I say to people is we need an outlet to let go. We need a social life. Sometimes people want to have a glass of wine. That's fine. I don't want to stop people from doing that. And maybe that's good on a Saturday night, but maybe you want to extend, like instead of going to bed at 9 p.m., maybe it's 11 p.m. Like you can still do that with a social life, or maybe it's midnight if you're really stretching it. But ideally it would be every single day you're going to wake up at the same time and going to bed at the same time every day. But if you find that you are wanting that social life and it's getting in the way of your sleep, then there are things you can do that when you wake up, can recover faster. So for example, like a cold shower, or you can do like an Epsom salt bath, or you can go to like the hot cold types of therapy. There's biohacking devices if you're somebody that wants to do that. But what you have to understand is the biohacking devices are good to supplement, all the good healthy stuff you're doing. But if your bank account is in a surplus, you can sometimes get away with a social life of staying up later. If you feel completely wiped the next day because you stayed up later than you should have, then that might be a sign that you should focus on other parts of your health to bring that up so you can get away with it once in a while. But if you feel like you can manage it and you're going to wake up at the same time, going to bed at the same time every day, then sometimes that can work out too.
What is one myth about sleeping that you wish it will disappear? Something that you say, oh gosh, this is not true.
I've heard a lot of them. I would say, sleep is for the weak. I'll sleep when I'm dead. Why would I sleep when I could get a bunch of stuff done? It's at least for these high performer types, they want to remain really productive. So they, again, see sleep as that liability. And so that's the biggest myth, but I can change their minds pretty quickly when I visually make them feel better. It's just people don't know what they don't know, right? You sometimes have to experience a new reality and then you'll look back and see, how far you've come.
Have you ever struggled with sleeping yourself?
I did, yeah. Probably 8 to 10 years ago, I was struggling with an autoimmune disease and sleep was a massive one. When I improved my sleep, a lot of those symptoms started to improve for me. But it was definitely something genetically that I didn't have a good time with. And the healing process for me with all that was addressing all these parts of my body with lab testing. I did all the top 10 tips: dark bedroom environment temperature, making sure it's cold, but it never worked for me. And so I went deeper and I went to the advanced things and I went to the lab testing, seeing there was mold in my body. I had parasites. The list went on, like there was a massive list of everything. And so once I removed those hidden stressors from our stress bucket, now my body had more bandwidth, just like a computer that's full of viruses. Once you remove the viruses, you have more RAM, you have more bandwidth available on your computer. Now it runs a lot faster and more efficiently, and my body was the same way.
Let's try to predict the future, Riley. Where do you think this science, I'll call it science, the field of sleep optimization, will be heading in the next 5 years?
I think we're going to be getting a lot into personalized medicine in combination with AI. You're going to see AI, like for example, people's biometrics from their Oura Ring or whatever device they have, using that in correlation with AI based on, what time they're going to bed, what do they do for exercise. And I think they're going to integrate people's habits and daily schedule into some modality with that, I think, and utilizing AI of giving people prompts at different times of the day when they should wake up, what time should they go to bed. But I think they're also going to be able to measure more biomarkers like somebody's blood sugar, somebody's, inflammation in the body. And to be able in the future, you take one prick sample and they can detect a form of disease coming up. In the same way with sleep, I think there's going to be a lot of interesting revolutions around there coming with sleep. And maybe it's going to be integrated into somebody's house with, virtual screens around people's houses, giving them reminders of what they should and shouldn't do.
That sounds really cool. Let's do a quick round of shootout of quick questions.
Sure.
Or advice based on your experience. What do you do with nightmares? You wake up in the middle of the night, terrible nightmare. What do you do next?
And you wake up with nightmares, you can't get back to sleep. The best thing that you can do is listen to something called binaural beats. And because when you wake up from nightmares, your heart's probably racing, your brain is in a really gamma brainwave state. So you want to slow those brainwaves down. So there's an app on your phone you can download. It's called Brain. Productivi-Tree.fm, and you wear headphones, and that will put your brain into, and there's a sleep mode on there, and that will put your brain into a more sleepy state. And so that's a quick hack to kind of get back into those sleepy states if you find you're awake from a nightmare.
Water, it's basically fundamental, and everything works much better in our bodies when we drink water. But if you drink water before going to bed, it's likely that you will wake up in the middle of the night because you need to do pee-pee. What do you do? Water or no water before sleeping?
Right before sleep, I went to water. I'd probably say my last cup like 3 to 4 hours prior to bed. But what can be beneficial if you find you're waking up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom, having salt, like good salt, like Celtic salt, pink Himalayan salt, this can help retain your fluids. It's known as a hormone called aldosterone, and it can help so you don't wake up as much to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night. Because if you're low on electrolytes and minerals and you're waking up a lot, that could be a sign that maybe you want some salt. So maybe you had like half a cup of warm water, put in some salt in there, maybe an hour or two before bedtime. That can be beneficial.
Interesting. Jet lag. Stay awake, sleep a little bit, don't sleep at all.
Good question. So a couple days prior to leaving for your destination time zone, you're in your current time zone, you want to start adapting to that destination time zone a couple days if you can. And then when you arrive in your destination time zone, you want to expose your eyes to sunlight, like as soon as you wake up, putting on those blue light blocking glasses in your destination time zone and just adapting to that as fast as possible. But also doing things like grounding, like walking in, like swimming in a body of water, walking with your bare feet in sand, dirt, grass can also help. And then you can also utilize melatonin in your destination time zone. And even prior, you can imagine, like if you're in your current time zone, start using melatonin as if you were going to sleep in the destination time zone. And that can also help as well. So whether you go to bed earlier, you go to bed later, that can also help.
The red zone for sleeping in hours.
Between 7 and 9 hours is usually the sweet spot. Everybody's different based on their chronotype. Sometimes people are a morning person like yourself. They like to go to bed at 9 or 10 p.m. And then you have the night owls. And usually the night owls are about 1, 2, 3 hours later for bedtime than the morning larks.
For those struggling, Riley, to sleep, it's a serious thing. If you don't sleep well, or if you don't sleep at all, I have seen people that is really miserable and that are really of not sleeping. How they can start with your platform, with you, how they can start with a consultant like you, how can they improve their sleep?
Yeah, great question. I mean, for what I have is a bunch of free resources available if people want to go to thesleepconsultant.com. On side of there, there's top 10 sleep tips, things you can do. There's questionnaires to figure out why you might not be sleeping and what exactly you can do about it. But the most important thing is to start with the basics first. Sleep is one of the biggest and easiest things to fix compared to doing a full new nutrition plan, compared to going to the gym, lifting heavy weights. A lot of that stuff can be uncomfortable, but with your sleep, you just need to change certain things once, and the ROI you can see on the next days, weeks, months ahead can be massive. But always start with the lowest hanging fruit, simple things first, and then you can get advanced.
Riley, thank you so much for your time today. I've learned a lot. We have all learned a lot about sleeping. And you have just said about your website. Anyone that wants to learn, the first step probably, and to understand how they sleep and why they sleep. Any read that you recommend? Any book?
A book for sleep?
A book to understand better sleep and yeah.
Yeah, the best one is by Matthew Walker, and it's called Why We Sleep. And that's one that I highly recommend. And he was also, Matthew Walker, you can just YouTube him. He was on Joe Rogan and other podcasts too, but he brings a childlike wonder to sleep that will make you a lot more interested in sleep too. So that's one I highly recommend for any beginner.
Thank you so much, Riley. This was super interesting. It's 7 p.m. where I am now, and I'm excited to go to sleep. Thanks so much, and hope to see you soon in the podcast.
Thank you, Santiago. Talk soon.
Thanks for listening to Productivi-Tree. I hope you found something useful in today's episode. If you did, and it helps improve your life even a tiny bit, that'll make me really happy. Remember, you can find Productivi-Tree on all major podcast platforms like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts. If you enjoyed the show, why not share it with a friend who might also find it helpful? Until next time, and keep growing and stay productive.